In the pale hush after the battle, the river looked like a sheet of beaten steel, burnished where the afternoon sun pierced the cloud. Men were in it still, some standing knee-deep and staring as if their bodies had forgotten how to move, some crawling to the stony bank, some floating face down with their hair moving like weed. A red ruby skittered in the current, twisting light and shadow until it lodged between two pebbles. Rhaegar Targaryen bent and took it up, feeling grit beneath his thumb. The stone had been torn from his breastplate when the great hammer came down. He had felt the force of it rattle every bone, had felt the desperate strength of the man who swung it. He had seen the wild blue of Robert's eyes. He had gone down to one knee and risen out of the spray, and he had killed a king in a river. Now, a long while after, the world had not become quieter. It had sharpened. Every clink of mail, every whinny, every soft groan was a hard bead on a string. He stood with water dragging at his boots and watched his cousin Lewin pick a path across corpses toward the far bank where the stag banners lay tattered in mud. The air smelled of iron and reed. It tasted of copper and smoke. "Your Grace," Sir Barristan said. His voice was grave, and there was a red stain on his white sleeve that would not come out as easily as water. "The men wait on your word." "Prince," Rhaegar almost said. The word had been his for so long that another would not sit comfortably on his tongue. But he had seen Robert fall, had watched the life fly out of him, not all at once but in small stubborn measures. He had known already then, in the instant of the last thrust, that a line had shifted with the weight of a river and could not be pushed back. He closed his hand on the ruby until the points bit. His first word was a simple one. "Water," he said. "For the wounded. Ours and theirs." Men leapt to obey. In the near shallows, a captain of the Trident bent, lifted a boy no older than 15 by the armpits. The boy's leg hung at the wrong angle, gray bone glistening through torn hose. He was pale as bone also. He breathed. On the field beyond, collapsed standards. A crowned stag and a white trout, and the black falcon of the Vale dragged by broken sparwood. The banners of the Reach and Crownland still stood where the center had held. "Gather the lords who live," Rhaegar said. "Send riders to the fords. I want the river clean enough to drink by nightfall." Barristan inclined his head. He did not ask if the Northmen and Stormlords were to be allowed to crawl from the reeds. Rhaegar knew the man's code and knew it would rebel at any order to do otherwise. It was well. He would not have given it. He looked to the east bank, where a pale-haired boy on a dun palfrey sat very straight despite his splotched, muddy cloak. Ned Stark, not yet 25, looked older than his years when his face was still, which it nearly always was. He had taken a cut along his right temple that had bled into his brow and dried in crusted lines. When Rhaegar met his gaze across the water, Ned touched 2 fingers to his forehead and then his breast. The gesture was a stark, northern kind of courtesy, spare and clear. Rhaegar returned it the same way. They had fought in the press, close enough at one terrible turn that they'd seen through each other's helms. Rhaegar had read in Eddard Stark not hate but something harder, a refusal that would outlast tides. He respected it. He understood why such a man would ride across half the world for a sister, why he would hold a vow like ice in his palm, even if it burned. Lewin came back with a cluster of prisoners. Lord Stannis with blood on his lip and eyes like winter stone, grim and silent though his banner had been on the far flank. A bruised hoster Tully whose belly swelled above his belt. Jon Arryn white-bearded and gray with fatigue, his jaw set. A number of younger knights Rhaegar recognized from tourneys by their colors if not their faces. The Vale Lord stepped forward first, refusing his captor's hands. "Your Grace," said Jon Arryn, and he bowed with a stiffness that was not only age. "We are defeated. There is no more to say." "Nah, Hinde. And she is so." "There is much yet," Rhaegar said. He held his voice very gentle. "You shall be given tents and food, forbidden to flee, and you will speak with me later. The field must be tended first. We will bury our dead and yours. This country belongs to both of us. I would not poison it." He saw by some flicker in the eyes before him, surprise perhaps, or weary relief, that he had taken from them one expectation and replaced it with another. War would run on its accustomed rails if victory was used like a cudgel. He did not want rails. He wanted a road he had not yet walked. He had sensed it all his life, a tune threading through noise, a melody that promised another verse if he listened. The sky wore a bruised look by twilight. The riverbank was ringed with torchlight, and men staggered like shades between them with tools and stretchers. The moans had reduced to a low, ceaseless hum. A stag banner caught on a willow limb rattled whenever the wind breathed. Rhaegar allowed himself an hour alone with his horse and the cool dark until Sir Raleigh Duckfield found him. "There's a rider from King's Landing," Sir Raleigh said. "He came hard, and he will speak to you at once or choke on his tongue." Rhaegar drew the tie of his hair tighter where it had loosened during battle. "Bring him." The messenger was sallow and very young. His hands shook. Your Grace, the hiss," he swallowed. "King Aerys holds the city. Lord Tywin has come with a great host bearing the lion banners, and he begs the honor of entering to take up arms in your service. His messengers say they are here to aid. The king fears treachery." "No day. God." Rhaegar closed his eyes for a moment and saw, almost too easily, Lannister crimson rolling up the broad, flat road to the gate of the gods, bells ringing in welcome or warning, the gold of helms and the polished steel bright as water. He saw the white walls glow in the last light. He saw Varys' pale hands open and close. He saw a boy in white armor standing below a throne carved like an open dragon's mouth. "How many days?" he asked. "2," the boy stammered. "They have been 2 days before the walls." "And the king?" "Alive," the boy said, as if the word were very fragile. "The queen is in Maegor's holdfast with the princess and prince. There is talk that the king will—" He pressed his lips together. "The rumor that he would fire the city is a lie meant to turn us against him." The torch hissed as a large moth flitted into it and was gone. "It is what he has said before," Rhaegar said, and the boy flinched. Rhaegar did not soften his voice. "Take food, take sleep. You will bear a letter at dawn." The letter said little. It said that the king's son and heir came with the river Kyne and the reach behind him, and would be before the walls in 5 days. It said that no host would enter the city without the heir's word, lion or otherwise. It said that wildfire burned anyone it touched, loyal or not. He sealed it with the ring on his forefinger, the one set round with 3 paler rubies that glowed like fruit in the torchlight. He thought of other fires. He thought of a tower where the wind combed the grass like fingers, and a young woman's laughter before it broke into coughs. He thought of a child's first cry, how it made the world not larger, but deeper. He had felt something turn within him and set, as if it had found its groove at last. He had named that turn not happiness, but necessity. By morning, word had moved through the camps like sunlight. Men walked a little faster. Captains began to look farther than the next meal. A hawk wheeled overhead as the prince's standards rose, and the column shook off sleep like dust. When they moved, they did it in long, measured breaths. The vanguard's lances like a bristled edge. Rhaegar rode with Barristan, with the red and white of the King's Guard and the green roses of the Reach pressing behind them. Mace Tyrell had taken a bruise at the corner of his mouth and was speaking proudly of how his men had flanked the Stormlords at the last. Paxter Redwine had his hat crushed beneath his saddle and sobbed after it quietly when he thought no one saw. Randall Tarley spoke only of grit and discipline and lost none of either. At sunset the middle day, John Connington rode in from the south with 300 survivors of his pride. His fox banner furled and looking smaller than pride would have liked. He had failed Rhaegar once, and had lived with the bruise of it like a man who cannot escape the memory of slipping and falling on a public street. He reined up, and the 2 men touched forearms, and neither spoke of older wounds. "I will not have the city burn," Rhaegar said. "If the pyromancers so much as lift a finger, I want it broken." John nodded once. "Varys will have the keys to their vault. He collects keys." Bah. Rhaegar made no comment. He had always found Varys excessively interested in locks. On the fourth morning, they found the fields south of the city scorched by campfires. The plain rose there in a low, sensible way, good for wheat and drilling troops. The walls of King's Landing swam in sunlight beyond, vast and ornate, and built from stone, dragged from older quarries by men with older names. Outside the Gate of the Gods, the lions were drawn up in ranks so tidy they might have been hammered into the earth. Their banners made a tent of red. At the fore, beneath a crimson canopy gilded at the corners, stood a man whose face was a stone with a face drawn upon it. Tywin Lannister had added little gray to his yellow hair, but something in him had hardened in the years since he'd served his hand. He had the posture of a man who knows the length of his shadow at noon and knows that it falls farther than most. He did not dismount when Rhaegar approached with white cloaks at his back. "Lord Lannister," Rhaegar said. He took his seat. He had dressed simply, his breastplate restrapped, his hair combed back like dark water. "I see you brought the West with you." "I have brought loyalty," Tywin said. His voice was not loud, but it did not require distance to listen. "It is poor courtesy to keep a door barred against it." "The door was not yours and is not mine," Rhaegar said. "It is the city's." Tywin surveyed the white walls as if he were appraising the quality of the mortar, the straightness of the lines. "The city belongs to the king," he said, "and the king to the realm, and the realm to the small folk, if it belongs to anyone," Rhaegar said lightly. And he saw the smallest flicker cross Tywin's eyes again. The irritation a man feels at being served a spoonful of philosophy when he has asked for wine. "We have won a battle. We have not yet arranged the peace that must be done within those walls. You will find I am better suited to build than to batter," Tywin said. "I built a handship from the bones of weak men and made a kingdom into a household. Eris made it into something else. It can be a household again. Me. If by household you mean a place where one man's word is law," Rhaegar said, and he smiled. "We will speak of it. Not here. The king will not admit you." "Then you speak for him," Tywin said, very mild. "For the moment, I speak for myself," Rhaegar said. "If you are very patient, I will begin to speak for the realm. It will be easier to do so if no red-cloaked man crosses my gate unbidden today." Tywin's eyelids came down a fraction, as if he were sheltering a candle from a draft. "Your Grace," he said without warmth, "the city lies under threat of hunger and fire. My men have bread. They have discipline. The gold cloaks have neither. If you will not accept aid, you will have chaos." "If I accept aid, I will have a sack," Rhaegar said. He did not let the word ripen with anger. "I would not insult the honor of the West. I am saying what men will whisper to each other if I admit you, and I prefer to keep whispers fewer. Wait here. Pitch your tents. Send for bread carts and let the small folk line up in plain sight beyond arrow shot. Feed them under your banners if you must. The realm will see it and judge you kindly. And when I have made the streets safe, I will summon you to the Red Keep and we will make terms." "No." Tywin's face did not move. For a long breath they regarded one another. Behind Rhaegar he felt Barristan's impatience like heat, and behind Tywin he felt the unswerving attention of 1,000 men whose hearts beat in ranks. Here was the game Tywin liked. Not thrown dice, but carved stones on a wooden board. "If I wait," Tywin said at last, "what do I gain?" "Time," Rhaegar said. "To see which way the city turns. To see whether I am the man you should follow. Also, a daughter with a bright future." It was a small thing to throw into the air and watch the eddies it made. Tywin did not lick his lips. He did not blink quickly. He merely breathed in and breathed out. "You propose to wed the Princess Rhaenys to some lion cub?" Tywin said. "Or do you take my Cersei to wife now that you are done with Elia?" The words were like cold thorns. Rhaegar spoke evenly. "My wife is Princess Elia of Dorne. Our marriage was made and is not unmade. The realm will have peace or war depending on whether that truth is respected. But There are other matches. My brothers lack wives. My son will one day need one. There are Lannisters suitable for both. I will not speak of it as coin, but I will speak of it as peace. Peace is a dowry I prefer. Nani? Tywin's silence this time was the quiet of metal warming. Rhaegar thought of a younger Lannister girl in the Red Keep, a bright child with flat green eyes who had watched him once as if she could force him to turn his head if she only concentrated hard enough. He thought of Aelia and Maegor's holdfast with their children. He thought of Lyanna and the bright sword at the foot of her bed, and the wind moving the tapestries like the sea. "We will wait," Tywin said. "Not for long." "Long enough," Rhaegar said. He spurred forward and the white cloaks took their points around him, and the gate of the gods swung open just long enough for 10 horsemen and a prince. Once inside, the gate closed like a mouth. The city had a smell as particular as any household. Rhaegar remembered it immediately. A braid of tar and river scum, of tanneries and bakeries and privies and incense, of old stone warmed by sun and of hot anger that burst from windows and vanished. Today, it was fear. His arrival turned into a rumor as quickly as breath. Men on stoops sat straighter. Women glanced up from their buckets. Children ran. He heard his name called once, and then again, soft and tentative, as if testing whether it was safe to say it. He did not slow. The Red Keep rose like cunning itself at the city's top, and he had no luxury of walls to look at. On Aegon's high hill, the gold cloaks under Janos Slynt had arrayed themselves in uneasy lines, equipment clean and set wrong. The gates of the keep admitted them and closed again, and immediately the air cooled as if the sun had gone behind a cloud. Varys waited in a shade near the Tower of the Hand, dressed in garments that seemed more gray than lavender. "Your Grace," he breathed with theatrical relief. "What a victory! What a river! What a prodigy of fortune and virtue!" "Keys," Rhaegar said, unsmiling. The spy master placed a ring of them in Rhaegar's hand with such meek haste it made the prince feel unkind. "There are caches of wildfire beneath the city," Varys murmured, wringing his hands as if water would not drip unless he helped it. "They were placed at the king's order years ago for contingencies. The pyromancers of the Guildhall of Alchemists maintain them with pride. The finest of them, Wisdom Rossart, attends on his grace day and night. If the king were to, if any heat were to... He shuddered. "Sir Jaime?" Rhaegar said. "Within the throne room," Varys said with a small smile. "Ace constant as marble. He has become very thin." "I will see my father," Rhaegar said. "Send word to Sir Barristan and Sir Luwin. The Queen's safety is to be redoubled. Any man who enters Maegor's holdfast without Elia's word loses a hand. Any pyromancer who opens a jar without mine loses his head." Varys touched his breast as if he had once had a heart there and missed it. "Your Grace, you have a gift for plain instructions. I will try to remember the feeling." The doors to the throne room were a work of art, oak and iron, with dragons that twined through them like vines. They groaned when 10 men put their shoulders to them. Rhaegar entered alone, and the hush sucked the sound of his boots. The hall still had some of the past lying in it, some smell of cedar and old wax. The Iron Throne crouched at the end like something that had grown there naturally. On its steps sat a man with hair like ash, and a mouth that had forgotten good words. "You," Aerys said. His tongue flicked to wet his lips. It had become a habit with him. "My son returns from his play." Rhaegar set down his helm and gloves. "Your Grace," he said. "We have won at the Trident." Aerys's eyes skated away. "So the usurper lies in a ditch? I would like to view him. I would have him displayed. I would have him broken. Where is his head?" "He is dead in the river," Rhaegar said. "The rest is not a wall for us to climb. There is work to do here." "And Lannister?" Aerys said softly. "My old dog has come to lick my hand." "No," Rhaegar said. "He came to bite. I have not let him in." Aerys cackled, a small laugh, rusty. "So you keep out the only man who ever kept my chilblained kingdom warm." Very wise. You keep him out while you bring into my city your Dornish bitch and spawn, and whatever else you fancy. Do you think I do not hear the talk? Do you think I do not know what you did with that northern girl? Isai. The muscles in Rhaegar's jaw jumped before he could arrest them. We cannot go on like this, he said. Aerys rose from the step abruptly, surprisingly quick. He moved like an insect moves, all which way. You presume to say we, he hissed. You presume to put yourself beside me. You talk of peace and keys and doors as if I do not have hands. I am the dragon. I am the only fire left. Ah. Rhaegar climbed 2 of the steps and stood below his father's line of sight, refusing to look up. You are the king, he said softly. Let me be your hand. Let me sweep the ashes. Let me set some order. You would have me a puppet. I would have you obeyed. Aerys smiled with all his teeth. Obedience, he says. I will show you obedience. Bring me Rhaegar. Rhaegar's blood went cold even before the little man in green rushed out from behind a column with his pointed beard and his stinking pride. Your grace, Rhaegar said, bowing so deeply his nose nearly brushed the floor. The jars are sealed and said all about the city, as ordered, and the men of the Guildhall await the candle. The candle, Aerys murmured, delighted like a boy. The candle I drop and the city knows obedience. Do you like it, son? Do you like my candle? You should be writing a song for it. Rhaegar moved before thought. He had been quick, young, and he had never lost it. In a breath he was on the dais, and he had a hand at Rhaegar's collar, and pushed him until the man smelled the iron of the throne. Sir Jaime, Rhaegar said without turning his head, and he did not have to raise his voice. The boy in white was there in 3 steps, and his sword was bare. In his face, the more interesting parts had been sanded down by sleeplessness and something else. He looked not at Rhaegar, but at Aerys. Kneel, Rhaegar said, and Rhaegar folded as if his legs were twine. Your grace, Jaime said. This is treason. It is, Rhaegar said. Mine. Arrest the pyromancers? All of them. March them down to the dungeons. If any man reaches for a jar, cut him. Me. Jaime moved his eyes to Varys, who had drifted close like a scent. Varys spread his hands. Doe, he murmured. By all means, I dislike green. I ain't a king, Aerys screamed from the steps, and his spittle glowed in the light. I am the king. I will have your heads, every white head, and I will boil that woman from Dorne for soup. Rhaegar grabbed his father by the shoulders and felt his bones through his gown. He could feel, beneath his palms, the fragile creature who had once been young and fair, and had whispered in his son's ear the names of stars. He looked into eyes that had become lacquered and saw nothing of that. I will not let you kill us, he said, and his voice broke with terrible calm. Father, hear me. I will not. I will never. Aerys went slack. It shocked Rhaegar how light he was when Jaime's sword touched the air and Varys whispered, perhaps his grace should rest. Send him to his bed, Rhaegar said. Put 4 white cloaks at his door. Let no one in, not even me. Tell the queen she is safe. No. Shall I announce, Varys said, with a little hand flicker, that you sit the council as... Hand, Rhaegar said. He looked up at the razor crown above them. No, not hand. Regent. The realm must hear the plain truth. The king is unwell. His son rules until he is well again. That is the tale we will tell, and we will hold it until it is true. Jaime moved, and Rhaegar saw him flinch as if something inside him had finally struck a wall at speed. He had been given a path. No, a plank. Across water where he had thought there was none. It did not look sturdy, but it was there. Beyond the Red Keep night came down like a soft lid. On the hillside below, in the tent city, Tywin Lannister was told that the king's son had made himself regent. He sipped watered wine and did not change expression at all. When Elia heard it, she sat very still, and then set Rhaenys on her lap, and told her a story about a desert fox and a scorpion. and the wind who had no friends until he learned to listen. She could feel, under her fingers at her daughter's shoulder, the place where breath widened the child and narrowed her. And she watched Aegon's sleeping face, soft and perfect, and as new as good news. She thought of Rhaegar's letter, sent her at midnight by a boy with tired eyes. It had said little and everything. The wildfire is in my hands now. I will not let any man light it. The city is ours. Be prudent with your uncle and brave with the children. If I live, I will make the world you asked me for. Elia folded the note and tucked it into the lining of her bodice and touched the scar along the inside of her thigh that had never quite warmed since Aegon's birth. She had long ago learned to receive pain as one receives a student, with patience. She had learned to keep her dignity the way a woman keeps her scent in a country where all wind blows. In the Vale camp that had limped south with the retreating lords, Jon Arryn wrote 2 letters by lantern. One to his bannerman, asking for good behavior and patience. One to his ward in Winterfell, whose father had died in a mad king's pyre. He chose his words like stones. Eddard Stark did not wait to read anything. He had with him a small knot of Northmen and a sword that he had cleaned himself. He walked from tent to tent and spoke softly, and people stood straighter after he left, even those who had been enemies in the morning. At dawn he found a man from the Reach with a map that showed the roads of Dorne as slender and improbable threads through a wide blank. He had never seen the Tower of Joy, but he had seen towers, and he had seen joy, and he knew how quickly both could turn. He would go there with men who would follow him anywhere, and he would ask a question he had carried miles. When Rhaegar's council convened at sunrise, the hall felt at last like work. The chairs were not filled by show but by function. Barristan and Luwin, Mace Tyrell looking equal parts elated and anxious, Paxter still mourning his hat, Jon Connington, whose mouth was set with martyrdom, Varys, whose smile never reached his eyes, a pair of masters of coin and whisper who had crawled from shadows, Grand Maester Pycelle, whose beard was yellowed at the tip with spilled broth, and a sword. We will open the granaries and bring bread to the street, Rhaegar said. We will light no fires higher than a man. We will send out carts bearing the 7-pointed star and the 3-headed dragon, and whatever sigil men love enough to follow. We will give Tywin the right to feed but not to enter. The gold cloaks will be drilled on the steps of Rhaenys Hill until they can turn as one. Sir Barristan will visit the Pyromancer's Guildhall today with 50 men, and I will go with him. We must also relieve Storm's End, Mace Tyrell blurted, coloring as if he had said something too early at dinner. I have had the castle ringed these many months. Stannis holds stubbornly and eats rats. We will relieve it, Rhaegar said sardonically. We will relieve it by taking off your men and giving them to you again. We will allow Stannis to march to his castle and close his gates with bread enough to keep his household alive. We will not starve any man who is ours now, even if he was not ours yesterday. When a man's belly is full, he listens better. When it is empty, he is a torch. Varys made a small sound that might have been approval. The lions will not like the sight of men fed in your streets, he said. It will give the small folk regular eyes with which to see you. It will show me regular eyes with which to see them, Rhaegar said. I prefer those to the ones the court sells. I will go to the Tower of the Hand, Tyrell said, very eager suddenly. I would. You will not, Rhaegar said, not unkind but final. I will put no man in that tower for the present. It has not been well used. We will not pretend otherwise. Nah. When the council broke, Barristan fell into step beside Rhaegar in the corridor with the cool wind from the river blowing through arrow slits. You have made an enemy, the old knight said as if naming a weather. I have 20, Rhaegar said, but not, I pray, the one who stands with me. Barristan bowed his head so that the light picked out the silver in his hair like first frost. You have me, he said simply. Your father had me even when I wished to unhave him. You have me with my whole heart. No. What? Your father had me, Luwin said quietly from the other side, and he gave Rhaegar a quick, sad smile. But you have me as my sister's son. Do not forget it. I have not forgotten Dorne, Rhaegar said. I will not. He had not forgotten anything. That was the difficulty. He remembered the cool of Lyanna's hand on his, as he had placed his fingers over hers, and guided them to the rhythm he played. He remembered the smell of rain and the stones of that tower. He remembered the look on Arthur Dayne's face when Rhaegar had asked him to guard it, like a man who had been given a purpose that hurt. He remembered Alia's eyes when she had realized what he believed about songs and swords, and how, instead of spitting, she had nodded, very slight, as if she were agreeing that the sky was indeed large. Eddard found the tower after 4 days of dry wind, and a dawn that looked more like silver than sky. It rose from the rock as if the rock had decided to make a gesture, and the banners at its crown moved slowly as a dark sea. The Kingsguard who came down to meet him looked like white pieces in a game. His hair shone like cold metal, and his face was a thing made by intention. "Lord Stark," said Sir Arthur Dayne, "you are far from home." "So are you," Ned said. "We chose this," Arthur said. "Not all men can say the same." "There is a woman here," Ned said. "There may be a child. I have come for both." Arthur's eyes warmed and closed a little. "There is a woman," he said. "She is brave as all the boasts of men and sicker than pride. There is a child. He is a song. You may come for them. You may speak with her brother, who will be here with the day after tomorrow, if the roads have not changed." "No." Ned's hand tightened on the hilt of ice. "Your prince is dead," he said. "Not this time," Arthur said with a small, amazed smile that cracked some older sadness. "Not in a river that eats men for breakfast. He lives." Ned swallowed. He had come here with words like knives, with questions that were wedges to open a box. Now he had to hold them as if they were china. Then he can preach his songs himself. The tower room was filled with pale light that made everything look gentler than it should have. Lyanna lay with her hair loose and her skin pearly with sweat, and when she saw Ned, she smiled as if he had arrived with midsummer. "My wolf," she whispered. He went to his knees beside her and took her hand and kissed it, and tasted salt. "I came," he said, and now he was the boy again. The boy who had run after her across snow and rock and had always found himself laughing at the end because she looked at the world with such a daring he could not deny it. "You came," she echoed, and her eyes were shining not with fever but with something brighter. "I have done terrible things, Ned, and good ones. I cannot sort them, but the child is a good one. He is needed. She started coughing, and he steadied her and Arthur, very gently, lifted a cup to her lips. When she had drunk, she sighed. "Rhaegar said I am a winter half, and his is the summer half. I told him that winter is longer, so he will have to set his shoulder to the wheel." "You were taken," Ned said, and the words were like a stubborn bruise he pressed. "Father died because we believed you taken." She looked at him, and his insistence slid off her like rain. "I was found," she said. "I am not your thing to ruin, Ned, nor father's, nor Brandon's echo. I chose. If that was a crime, it is mine. Grow a man who can bear it." He stared at the child in the cradle dearer than a chest of rubies. He had his mother's mouth, and something indefinable in the brow. He breathed with the seriousness of the new. Ned's chest tightened painfully, not with anger, not with grief, but with a love that scared him. If he reached out, he would be entering a pact he could not break. Rhaegar stepped into the room with a quickness that was at odds with his usual measured ways, as if he were returning to a place where his time was already spent and had to be caught up. He looked at Eddard, and in his face there was not victory. There was apology and resolve and a tiredness as clean as water. "Lord Stark," he said, "I have come without fanfare. I will not set guards between you and yours. If you will take my oath, take it now. I swear I will not harm your sister. I swear I will not take the child from her arms so long as she has breath to warm him. I swear I will do nothing treacherous, nothing craven. I will offer you the truth, and you can refuse it if you must." The truth?" Ned said. "That my sister is your salt wife, that you have made my house a jape?" Rhaegar took the blow without flinching. "I have made myself a jape," he said. "Not your house. What I did because I believed there was a song that had to be sung, and it could not be otherwise. I do not expect you to find poetry in it. I expect you to find good in it if good is there. See him? Yeah. Nah. Mason Ben." Ned looked. The child's fingers opened and closed on air, reaching for a thing he did not know. "What will you call him?" "His mother will call him," Rhaegar said, and Lyanna smiled and whispered a name that sounded like a compromise between two seasons. They spoke then of practical things. They were men, and men bury everything gold under lists. Rhaegar could not annul what had been. He could not set aside Elia even if he became as ruthless as fireworks. He would not. He would not set aside Lyanna either. He would not hide. He would instead deliberately, with eyes open, attempt to teach the realm a new way to see an old custom. "My forefathers were not shy of more than one wife," he said. "They called it dragon ways. We have learned to be shamed by the habits of men we otherwise imitate whenever it pleases us. I will not force the realm to swallow my pride whole. I will ask it to take it in small bites." "You will make enemies," Ned said. "I am taking a census of them," Rhaegar said, and Lyanna laughed, coughing and then recovering. "Elia knows," he added, his voice dropping. "She knows as much as she needs to. She is braver than both of us and kinder than this situation deserves. I will protect her with all I am, and the children and your sister, and this child. I am not promising you more than I can deliver. I am promising not to be a coward." They heard the hawk before they saw it. Its scream came thin through the high window. A rider had brought a message tied to its leg from a castellan near the Blackwater. Tywin had drawn up his men a furlong north of the gate and had begun to build engines. The siege would begin by noon. Rhaegar cursed softly in Valyrian and kissed Lyanna's forehead with a delicacy that made Ned look away. "Hold," he said. "Hold and be as difficult as a stone." He looked at Ned. "Can I trust you to take care of her if—" "You can," Ned said before he knew he would. He could not help it. He was entirely himself. Back in the Red Keep, the air felt thinner. Eris raged behind a door padded like a cell. The Queen watched through a narrow fretwork panel and did not speak. Jaime Lannister took his sword down from the hook on the wall and looked at it as if it might talk. Varys moved servants with the same neat flickers a woman makes when embroidering. The gold cloaks were made to march until their legs looked like legs. The bread carts rolled. The city saw lions feed small folk and small folk take the bread and look up toward the hill where a dragon standard rippled like a thing alive. The first stone from the Lannister engines roared into the courtyard near the dragon pit and shattered a statue's arm. Rhaegar did not flinch, although he allowed himself the smallest flare of grief. An artisan had made that arm and had been proud of it, and now it was a lesson in momentum. The second stone fell short and crushed a pair of pigs. The third thudded against the outer wall and did no harm at all. "Lord Lannister seeks to show us his teeth," Barristan said. "He is counting ours," Rhaegar replied. "Make him lose track." At sunset, a rider in Tywin's camp unfurled a white cloth and a trumpet sounded that made even the air seem to square its shoulders. Rhaegar went out under a banner that was his and had been 300 years old and met Tywin on the hard earth. It was like stepping onto a page of a book and finding the words were not the ones you had expected. "You invite me to wait and feed peasants," Tywin said. "And then you appoint yourself regent. You place your father in a nursery. You give orders to white swords and green men and yellow beards. You talk of the realm as if it were a stew. And what is my part in this feast?" "Not host," Rhaegar said. "No longer." He lifted his hand when Tywin's face altered, swiftly. "You were the best hand a bad king ever had. You corrected him and curbed him and kept his appetites from ending us all. You did it by using fear like money and money like a knife. It was necessary, and we can honor what was necessary without making it a sacrament. I will not ask you to wash the same plate again. Be warden of the West. Be a man whose majesty is his house. Bring your banners when I call, and I will not call often. Send me gold for roads and ships. Send me men for border holds. Send me your daughter when the time is right to match her to a boy who will be a good husband. You will not sit the hand's chair. No. Because of a spasm of Dornish sentiment? Tywin said. His pain looked like anger but was more refined. Because I do not want you in my bedchamber, Rhaegar said evenly. This is not an insult. It is a conviction. We can make a world that does not require you to be what you were for my father. If you insist on being that thing, we will break more statues. If you insist on entering my city with a sword in front, you will not enter it at all. The small folk you feed today will curse you when bread runs dear again, Tywin said. The lords you flatter with talk of love will remember to ask for favors. The men you woo with songs will bring daggers to council. You will drown in words. Then let the realm see me drown, Rhaegar said, and he smiled in a way that showed how tired he was and how stubborn. If I survive, it will be because enough men can learn to do a thing other than bite. I will teach them if they have the patience. Teachings are not sacks. The North hates you, Tywin said. The Stormlands mourn their lord. The Vale is only quiet because its father is old. The Riverlands have lost too much to listen. You think the Reach can prop you up with flowers? No. I think people prefer a king who does not threaten to gut them and burn their houses, Rhaegar said softly. If you do not, then we will discover together that I am a fool. We will not learn it today. Tywin looked at him for a long time. A small breeze lifted one of the red standard streamers and laid it down again. You will falter, he said. When you do, you will reach for me. Perhaps, Rhaegar said. I would prefer to reach for my wife, or my brother, or a man who loves nothing but his duty. If I must reach for you, I will own it. Today, I wish you to reach for your tent ropes and pull them up. Now. On the hill, the city watched a conversation no one could hear. The way children watch men talk about money. When the men turned away at last, Tywin's camp did not move. It was a kind of answer. Night came. The dirge of the engines continued like the slow pulse of a thing that cannot be reasoned with. Mace Tyrell wanted battle. Randyll Tarly wanted it more. Barristan wanted it not at all. Varys wanted it invisible. Elia wanted morning to keep coming. Rhaegar wanted simply to set all the pieces in his head in such a way that the vision he carried would show up in the world. On the second day of the siege, a door opened that had been closed for years. The men who stepped through it were all in white. They carried with them the city's secret, painted maps of tunnels built when Aegon had dreamed of dragons sleeping under the hill, of wells that had been sealed, of posterns. Years had given Varys the patience to find them, and the malice to hold them close. Now, presented with a choice, he relinquished a portion of his power, like a man who wishes to keep the rest. Before dawn, 100 picked men led by Randyll Tarly slid out of the city and crossed the dry ditch where the lions had not thought to look because it had always been dry. At midday, when Tywin's men were changing watch and had that brief looseness armies always have between one state and another, Tarly's men lit 3 fires in 3 separate places along the siege line and withdrew. They had burned nothing but stakes and a few tents, but smoke is accusation. The lions turned to put out little blazes, and only after realized the gold cloaks had sallied and taken down 2 of their engines. The second sally returned with prisoners who talked quickly because their captain had no particular interest in throttling bravery out of them. In the afternoon, a rain fell that turned the ground to porridge. This is not a storm you can be proud of weathering, Rhaegar said to no one, staring at the ceiling. He had been hours without sleep, and he could feel words fraying, as if they had fuzz on them. That night, Tywin Lannister sent a message on a board carried by 4 men. I will meet you on neutral ground. No white cloaks, no red cloaks, no tricks. The next morning, they stood together on the bridge of a half-finished mill, the river slapping beneath. We will not take your city, Tywin said. It was as if he were announcing a purchase that had fallen through. We will pull back 3 miles and camp, and we will wait and see what sort of king you are. If you fail, you will look for me. If you thrive, you will not need me. My banner will not be the first to rise when you call, but it will not be the last. Nunchi. Rhaegar nodded once, slowly. Thank you, he said. The words were rare coins. He did not like to spend them where they would not be kept. Hold your men. Feed them yourselves. Let them buy pork from the villages and pay twice. Tywin's mouth twitched. Pay twice, he repeated, as if tasting something foreign and finding it not entirely unpleasant. Send me a proper list of the city's needs. We will publish it on the sept doors, Rhaegar said, and Tywin almost smiled. When the lions drew their bright tense ring back from the wall, the city breathed. It did not cheer. It did not trust its lungs, but it breathed. Rhaegar went to his father's door and laid his palm against it and whispered that the fire would not be needed. He went to Maegor's holdfast and lifted Aegon in his arms, and the baby's mouth rooted at his breastplate, and made suckling faces against steel. He went to Elia and kissed her cheeks and listened while she reported small things as if they were the tides. This scullion has a good hand. This maid is afraid of heights. This corridor has a draft that could carry a fever. You smell like smoke and river, she told him, not unkindly. Go sleep on a mat someplace where the wind comes in. You will take ill if you keep yourself upright like a banner. He meant to go to the Tower of Joy, but duty piled itself like sticks. He sent a rider with half a dozen white cloaks ahead bearing letters for Ned and Lyanna, and the rider returned 2 days later with a reply that was only a single line in a spare northern hand. She asks for winter flowers when you come. He went then, under a sky that had become a clear pane of blue, and he took with him no fanfare and 2 friends. Lyanna was stronger, sitting up with a blanket around her shoulders and the child at her breast. She laughed when he placed the small bunch of white starflowers in her palm, and his heart pricked, because he had always known that women's laughter could contain everything men made difficult with talk. Tywin has stepped back, he told her. He will haunt us from a distance instead of beneath our eaves. He will haunt you, she said. Not me. I will haunt you. Take care, Prince. Songs are good kindling. I am learning to douse, he said. And she looked at him in a way that made him less sure of his own wit. I have made a beginning with truth, he added. I will speak with the realm, not at it. That is the difference between a speech and a conversation. You cannot converse with a crowd, Ned said dryly. You can only be overheard. Then let them overhear me be reasonable, Rhaegar said. If I pretend I am not making bargains, they will know I am lying. If I make them carefully and put them in sunlight, they may feel less insulted by the secret. Lyanna's smile went sideways. You have gone and made politics sound like dancing. It is, he said. Badly done, more often than not. When he returned to the city, he sent letters like seeds, to Winterfell and Sunspear, to Old Town and the Eyrie, to River Run and High Garden, and the Dreadfort and the Arbor. He wrote not with royal lacquer, but with the hand of a man telling a complicated story plainly. He called for a great council in the spring. He summoned oaths and promised protections. He named wrongs he would make right, beginning with the grief taken on by houses whose sons had burned for his father's fear. He offered to see them, to say it in person. He ordered auditors to count what was left in the chests Pycelle had guarded like an old man guarding his childhood. He told the alchemists that if they wished to keep their guild hall, they would now devote half their energies to cleaning the city's drains and making vinegar. He had them pay men to scrape soot off old stones. In Maegor's holdfast, he sat with Elia, and he sat with Rhaenys, and he learned that a 3-year-old can reduce a high prince to astonishment by dropping a silk frog and essaying solemnly to pick it up. He sat with Lyanna when he could and with the child. He learned that love is not additive. It is not 1 + 1 makes 2. It is more like 1 + 1 makes something with a different name. When spring came down the Rosby Road with wagons and creaking hope, when apple blossoms shook loose like lost rice, when the bells were rung because ringing bells was the sort of thing cities did when they did not know what else to do, Rhaegar stood in the great sept of Baelor and saw the realm arranged like a map. Lords in their squares and circles, new faces and old suspicions, color and cold. He felt the breath of it, collective and anxious. And he began to speak. He did not speak as a dragon. He did not speak as a man who believed he could reverse rivers. He spoke like a musician who knows his instrument and the song, and is not afraid to let silence fall at the right moments so that the next notes will land clean. He talked of his father's madness without naming it madness. He spoke of peace without calling it surrender. He named Tywin Lannister where it was prudent to do so, and placed him in a line with other great lords who had done the realm a harsh service. He spoke of Elia and lifted Aegon, and made the child a simple thing. A boy, a future. He spoke of Lyanna Stark and did not call her by any name but Friend of the Crown until the words could hold more. He did not sing. He let the walls do that, with the echoes of someone else's voice long before. After, in the cool of the nave, Hoster Tully came up with a face like a man who has been required to look at his own ledger. "You have good words," he said, and the implication was something like, "We will see if you have good accounts." "We will," Rhaegar said. "You have grief. I would lessen it." "Nay, wada. Give my daughters husbands who will keep them," Hoster said, and his tone said he was tired of making bargains with the weather. "Give me rivers free of bodies. Give me a winter pantry with barrels in it." "I cannot make it rain," Rhaegar said, "but I can build roofs for when it doesn't." In a cloister, Jon Arryn leaned on a column and watched a boy in white walk past. "Your father is locked up," he said without looking at Rhaegar. "It makes me sadder than I expected." "It makes me less ashamed," Rhaegar said finally. "That is what I have to offer the realm to start with, the chance to be less ashamed." Jon Arryn turned his head swiftly, and Rhaegar read in his eyes not merely approval but recognition. He had said something the older man believed without permitting himself to say it aloud. It made Rhaegar strong for an hour, like good soup. Tywin Lannister did not attend the council. He sent a letter heavy with compliments and light as a sycamore leaf with promise. Rhaegar would have liked him there. He would have liked to look at the man's face and know which way the wind moved when a thing like this blew. But Tywin was not a wind watcher. He was a mountain that measured winds by how they whistled around his edges. Rhaegar sent him a copy of the accounts as if that would charm him. At night, when the noise of the city lay down and rolled over, when the summer bugs made their small polite racket in the eaves, Rhaegar climbed a stair to a room whose windows looked at the Blackwater and the sea beyond. He stood there and played his harp very softly for fear of waking anyone he loved. He played not the song he had played as a boy, not the one he had played for Lyanna the night he had brought her to that tower. He played a newer, poorer tune that did not try to soar but kept its feet. He let it be only what it could be. He thought of all that had been broken to make a crown into a chair for a man, and decided he would rather sit on a stool. In Casterly Rock, Tywin Lannister walked a long corridor lit with hammered copper lamps, and listened to the sea ramming the base of his house like an impatient creditor. He saw his daughter with her hair plaited like a crown, and his son with a book too big for his lap, his spare son, the one fate had sent him instead of the shadow he had asked for. He saw his own hands still steady. He told himself that what the dragon boy built would not last, but if it did, he would live in it as in any well-made house. He did not consider himself beaten. He considered himself observing. Eddard Stark returned to Winterfell with a sister and a child. He told his bannermen that this child had a mixed fate, and they were to see him as another Stark, because there were not enough of either ice or fire in the world to be throwing them away. He sat before the heart tree and placed his palm against its bark and thought about how promises grow moss. He did not forgive everything. He learned to carry some things as if they were tools, not stones. Elia Martell taught Rhaenys to read the names of flowers, and the names of houses, and the names of virtues with equal care. She showed Aegon how to reach for things and how to let them go. She kept her temper when the court measured her against a girl it had already turned into a song, because songs are easier to measure than women. She chose her castles carefully, one on her face and one in her belly, and into both she moved her children and her pride. Lyanna rode north with her son when the winds changed and the leaves went copper and gold. She had been brave, and now she learned to be patient. She was not very good at it. She galloped when she could, and laughed when she could not. She sent letters south that were small and honest and made the reader feel as if he had taken a drink of cold water. Jaime Lannister learned to stand at a door and not open it. He learned that doing nothing could be a sword. He learned that one can carry a vow like a stone in the mouth, and that after a while your tongue shapes itself around it, and you can almost speak normally. He learned it is better to be sneered at as a boy than praised as a monster. He learned to hate fewer things. Varys kept keys. He also gave some away. He decided that a kingdom where he was not the only man who could open doors might be less entertaining, but would be more restful. He watched Rhaegar and thought, there is a man who has decided what kind of story he is in. When winter came early that year, as if to remind everyone that the world is not impressed by crowns, the White Harbor sent a cough that blew through the court and took 2 old lords and 1 singer. The grain that Rhaegar had maneuvered into the capital kept the worst from happening. The lions did not starve. They ate from their own storehouses and were annoyed by it, which was healthy for them. Tywin walked his house with a mantle about his shoulders and felt a faint new annoyance at the wind, and smiled because he rarely allowed himself to feel anything so trivial. And always under it, the matter that had moved everything else before it. Prophecy, that troublesome horse Rhaegar had tried to mount too young. He did not abandon it. He did not strip it for parts and throw it on a midden. He set it on a lower shelf and dusted it occasionally. He thought of ice and fire and decided that if a song had to be sung, it would be sung by a chorus, not a soloist. Years do not pass all at once. They trickle, and they jump. In the 2nd year of his regency, with his father growing smaller behind the door and the realm growing larger beyond it, Rhaegar called Tywin Lannister again to the city. The lions had not come close since the siege. Their gold had come, measured and polite. Their men, when asked, fewer than full oaths, but enough. Tywin came and stood in the throne room and looked the same and not the same. You kept your word, Rhaegar said. I always do, Tywin replied. You would sit the hand's chair still, Rhaegar said without question. You are a man who believes in instruments. I am a man who prefers to make music with fewer strings. You dislike that. I find it an unnecessary labor, Tywin said. But you have not done badly. You have stopped the leaks. I have learned to listen at doors, Rhaegar said. I am grateful for your letter about the tar merchants on the hook. It was very useful. Tywin accepted the compliment as if it were a tithe. Your brothers need arrangement, he said. Viserys should be given work. He is too much in the way of women. Viserys will foster at Casterly Rock, Rhaegar said calmly. If you like, he will hunt with your men and learn your habits. You will not marry your daughter to him while he is there. You will not put her in his way either. You will let him grow on cliff air until he cannot breathe any other. Tywin's eyes went narrow like a cat's. You place a lot of trust in me, he said softly. I place it like a weight, Rhaegar said. I think you will not like to be known as a man who failed the boy. It would be untidy. Tywin breathed out through his nose, which was as close as he came to laughter in public. And your other problem? He asked. The Stark girl, the Winter wife. I do not discuss my wives with men, Rhaegar said. Not even you. For a heartbeat, Tywin looked almost genuinely amused. We will see if the realm follows you into that practice, he murmured. It likes to talk. It can talk, Rhaegar said. I am busy. In the years that followed, the talk never stopped. That was fine. Forges never stopped either. Rhaegar rode more than he sat. He listened more than he pronounced. He pointed more than he commanded. He became less beloved than he might have been, and more respected than his father had ever conceived of being. He learned that respect is less sweet than love but lasts longer on the road. He faced Tywin again and again, as an obstacle and as a necessary counterweight. Tywin found 6 different ways to turn his necessity into an argument for power, and Rhaegar found 6 to leave him exactly where he stood. It was not romance. It was a partnership built like a bridge, with tension in the cables so that the span would stand. He did not regret keeping the man out of his bedchamber. He regretted sometimes keeping him out of the kitchen, where he could have made the stew richer with less effort. He compromised on kitchens. He held fast to doors. He made mistakes. He cut 3 throats too late and 1 too early. He trusted one smiling lord who should have been pressed like a bruise sooner. He forgave a fool who turned out not to be a fool at all. He did not fear his enemies half as much as he learned to fear his friends when they began to believe they understood him. He would rather be misunderstood entirely than partially domesticated. He kept Elia's counsel because it was clean. He took Lyanna's laughter because it cut knots that had become impossible to untie. He let Ned Stark be a wall in the north, because walls have their own wisdom. He was not a dragon in the end. He was a man who had taken from dragons their useful practices and left the rest to fossil. That, he decided, could be legacy enough. On a winter night in the 5th year, when the snow fell even in the city, and the statues had mufflers of white and boys, threw balls of it at the feet of kings, and fled shrieking. Rhaegar sat with Tywin Lannister by a low brazier. They had been fighting for a month, and had not called it that, not in words. The West had balked at attacks. The city had balked at a levy. The realm had balked at being asked to be good. Tywin looked older. His face had not melted, but the lines were deeper, as if carved with a more committed tool. "Your Grace," he said, "the future of this kingdom will belong to whoever remembers it has a future." Rhaegar nodded. "And not to the man who remembers he had a past." Tywin's smile was brief and entirely human. "Build your roads," he said. "I will send you stone. Feed your miners," Rhaegar said. "I will send you grain. Keep your secrets," Tywin said. "I will keep my word." They sat. The fire made its little noises. Rhaegar thought of a river, a ruby lodged between stones, a hammer ringing on steel, a man falling. He thought of a tower and women, and a child who had grown and would grow, and would one day look at him as if he were something like weather. He thought of a song sung by more than one voice, the way the simplest truth is often the one that survives. When he slept at last, in a room that held so many decisions it should have creaked, he dreamed not of dragons but of bridges. He dreamed of men who had once been enemies walking them from opposite sides and meeting in the middle and standing there for a moment, a little awkward, as if they had both forgotten who had the right of way, and then stepping past each other without pushing. He woke to the soft white hush of falling snow. He rose and went to the window and looked out at the city and the world beyond it. It was neither conquered nor tamed. It did not need to be. It needed to be kept from burning, from starving, from falling asleep while wolves smiled. He could do that. He was already doing it. He had faced a man who believed men are machines, and he had learned to be an engineer of a different kind. He had faced himself and made accommodations. He had faced prophecy and put it in a chair in the corner to watch. He had faced his father and refused to be made into a tool. He stood there with snow in his hair and the taste of cold in his mouth, and heard, faintly, somewhere in the palace, the clear high laughter of a child, and then another, lower, in mimicry. He smiled a little. He had work to do. He went to his work.